Appreciating what we were given rarely comes easy, especially when we were given something that requires what's opposite of common knowledge amongst its target audience to be understood, let alone appreciated, and which is also at the same time underpowered. It is easy to look at Rival's lineup and miss the fact that this game has to deal with a problem no other shooter has to deal with, and it does so well it makes said problem largely unnoticeable. What pulled me into the Rivals in the first place is the fact that its lineup looks more like one of a MOBA or an RPG rather than a shooter, and I spent most of my life as a gamer on such RPGs, both of MMO and non-MMO variety, due to simple fact that they allow me for more than just being a man with a gun, something I can do IRL with no issue. All 500 Calls of Duty flew completely under my radar, and my limited exposure to FPS genre remained for few years the occasional rendezvous with Team Fortress 2, which pulled me in for obvious reasons. Piss! My FPS adventures started for real in 2016 with Overwatch and Titanfall 2, which both I played quite a bit, but apparently not enough to make my aim less garbage than average raccoon's midnight snack. And that adventure in question took a nosedive and few-year hiatus as both Respawn and Blizzard decided to slowly torture their IPs to death. But how does that in any way, shape or form connect to the topic of the video? Well, my adventure with FPSs was revived somewhat this year, firstly with Deadlock becoming a thing, and now even more with Rivals becoming the thing. And pretty much seconds after I booted Rivals for the first time, pressed Quick Play, and ended up in a lobby with Thor, Hulk, Black Panther and Magic in one team, and Wolverine, Iron Fist, Venom and me as Captain America on the other, my mind recalled a quote.
You know they're gonna have guns, right?
And sudden realization hit me harder than Iron Man ult did mere minutes later. Rivals has more dedicated melee heroes than all shooters I played to this point combined. Overwatch has just Reinhardt and potentially Brigitte, as even Doomfist has essentially a shotgun built into his arm. Deadlock puts something gun adjacent in every character's hands, and in TF2, only 2 classes let you leave spawn without ranged weapon tucked somewhere in your build. Sure, you could make arguments for Sheev and Abrams from Deadlock or Genji and aforementioned Doomfist from Overwatch, as they also have to get in sniffing distance from their opponents, but then you'd have to start making arguments for characters like Psylocke, which is essentially a Genji First Right Man, and Winter Soldier who strolls around with a hook, an uppercut, and this thing. In short, that's a can of worms that's a little too convoluted for me to waste time on right now, considering topping of this tangent is already a goulash with many ranges, so we'll define melee characters as ones who do not have ranged primary fire, and all ranged abilities in their kits work to enhance their melee capabilities, not to replace them. By this definition, Rivals has 9 melee characters, as we consider Venom's weekly ticklers a melee attack due to their hard-capped and comically short in comparison to Gun's range. In summary, over 1/4 of the game's roster brought throwing hands to a gunfight, and the game is bloody playable. And that's genuinely mind-blowing. In MOBAs, strategy games and any RPG with PvP elements, there exists a term range advantage, referring to the fact that whatever has longer range can start attacking things with shorter range before those things can attack it. If you ever faced a sniper in any game in existence, you certainly can grasp that concept. The problem we're bumping into here is that melee versus ranged matchup is inherently unfair, far more unfair than that between 2 guys with different guns. As in sniper rifle versus SMG or something, not only the window of ranges at which SMG starts to shine is much longer than elbow-checking distance, but also sniper rifle, if implemented correctly, will be less effective the closer you are to the target. Now take for example someone like Punisher versus someone like Iron Fist. Not only will Punisher be able to damage Iron Fist long before Iron Fist can damage Punisher, but as the enemy approaches, it will gradually become easier for Punisher to beam the enemy down, as the closer they are, the bigger the head hitbox appears on the screen. And even if, through the sheer skill issue on Punisher's side, they get too close, he has a shotgun. So theoretically, on paper, this matchup should be unwinnable for Iron Fist. Unless someone at NetEase had enough RPG knowledge to pitch the fact that every melee versus ranged matchup always ends up being balanced around movement, high enough at the studio, and early enough in the development to make that fact fully baked into the game's design philosophy from the ground up. The thing that unites all melee characters in Marvel Rivals is mobility that borders both insanity and parallel Earth Yugoslavia. Captain America has permanent sprint and super jumps aplenty, as well as 2 dashes on separate cooldowns. Hulk gets access to infinite leaps which he can charge and stick to walls with as a passive. Thor can dash repeatedly as long as he has his resource. Venom can do this. Black Panther's dash cooldown gets reset every time he hits marked enemy, and all of his other abilities mark enemies hit. Spider-Man,
he's a menace to the entire city! I want that wall-crawling arachnid prosecuted! I want him strung up by his web! I want Spider-Man!
Iron Fist is genuinely something special, in both good and bad way. It's both comical and horrifying just how much airtime that dude gets from flapping his limbs around, and also Titanfall cold. They want their wall run back, and off drugs. Moving on. Magic's portals provide brief invulnerability and she has omnidirectional dash on top of them. And as a cherry on top, Wolverine.
Let's do this.
Let's just say, the more I engage with Marvel Rivals, the funnier I find this image. The summary of the entire goulash being NetEase made damn bloody sure melee characters in this game have ample ways to get in and out of melee, as well as to stay in melee, sometimes even too sure. Mobility of those characters provides a layer of skill expression you'd be hard-pressed to find otherwise, as inability to land headshots does hinder the skill expression through the lack of mechanical execution, to the same extent it hinders damage potential at higher skill level. Therefore, melee characters in Rivals were all made to be very mobile and combo-oriented, to add back that level of skill requirement and expression, so that players can overcome the enemy by clever positioning and use of their abilities rather than running at the enemy team in a straight line and start checking the nearest target, as we usually see when melee versus range is handled incorrectly. Whoever's in charge of Rivals gameplay design not only understands the struggles of melee versus ranged gameplay, the ways in which skill expression can be added into the kit of a character that doesn't aim shit, and how to tie all of that together in third-person shooter environment, but also how to make that gameplay feel fair for both sides, and have that feeling scale gradually alongside player skill. Pretty much only melee character that causes any frustration as of now is Iron Fist, and that's mostly due to the fact his auto-attack has a lock-on feature that magnetizes him to the target, making sticking to people brain dead simple. Other melee heroes are mostly considered underpowered, though entire community is more cautious with these claims than one could imagine an online community to be, as those underpowered characters already have their representation in Grandmaster and such, including Wolverine, who seems the most in need of help from all 9 melee characters on the roster. And the fact that NetEase nailed the melee character's design 8 out of 9 times, exception being Iron Fist of course, proves that their success in this field is not a coincidence. Putting a one dude without a gun into a game, in a genre of games revolving around shooting people, and making him feel fair to play as and against, is by itself an accomplishment. Doing so 8.5 times in a row is genuinely impressive. And all I have to say in the end is, it's the hero design that dictates how easy balancing the game will be in the future. So long character isn't broken weak nor broken OP design-wise, it can be adjusted with numbers to the point where they are balanced. And this is the single thing that NetEase did exceptionally. None of the heroes in the roster requires more than numeric adjustments, and most of the concerns I have are a direct result of those bloody season bonuses, which quite probably shouldn't be in the bloody game in the first place, as they are permanent, always present season-wide buffs to certain already overpowered characters, like Hawkeye and Hela, while also hiding the fact that most of the Vanguards are as of now really in need of buffs. If I could direct few words of wisdom to our dear developers in regards to team-ups in this game: more manlet missiles, less passive buffs, please. Thank you in advance. Also, a big sign of gratitude towards my generous Patreon supporters who continuously consider my dubious quality garbage content worth their money. You're all truly welcome. Crabface out.